Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined as always by Field Yates and Mike Clay. We have a huge show set up for you today. We're diving into Mike Clay's 192. They are finally out. That is going to be a big thing for us to talk about. We're going to take Mike Clay to court, Field. You and I are taking Mike Clay to court to argue on a couple of his rankings.
Ready.
And we're going to dive into a few more topics throughout the show. But guys, first and foremost, how you doing? I did not see you yesterday. It's great to see you today.
Yeah, great to have you back. And I was wondering, is the reason why you didn't introduce us as your two best friends, which you often do, because we're about to go to court with Mike?
Yeah, I only have one best friend today, and we'll see who it is at the end of the show based on where the rankings come out. That's
we're great. Fun show yesterday, and yeah. What's going on?
I get it. You had to skip the show yesterday to work on your defense.
That's what it is. Yeah,
that's what it is. I get it.
Put time into
it. Are you
Mike?
The defense, or is he the prosecutor?
You're the prosecution. Yeah, you work on your prosecution.
And I know nothing about the legal system, but I did just watch 8 episodes of Presumed Innocent in like a 3-day streak.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I really believe I am very much primed to win.
I think I'm ready. I mean, I'm guilty, like as so many are, of being like, all right, what's on TV? I'm channel surfing. I'll put on SVU for a little bit. 6 hours later, because you cannot shut that show off, right? I mean, they just hook you with the next episode, and you go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
That's so good. Hey, speaking of being ready, we are also very ready. Something exciting that we want to tell you guys. Our Boston live show is happening. Go to fantasyfocuslive.com.
Wait.
August 15th is the date. Doors open at 5. Show starts at 6 p.m. We're going to have a very fun show. Me, Field, Mike, and Stefania, and our buddy Liz Loza, all the way from Los Angeles, coming to join us. And after the show, we are going to tailgate a little bit and watch the Patriots-Eagles preseason game afterwards with you in case you come in attendance. It's going to be a ton of fun, guys. So make sure you go check out fantasyfocuslive.com. Is there a chance, Field? Is there a chance that Brandon Ayuk will be a part of the New England Patriots by the time we get to the live show?
I think there is a chance, Daniel. Reporting this morning from Mike Reese, Adam Schefter, amongst others here at ESPN, on the possibility of the 49ers trading Brandon Ayuk, which is becoming more and more likely. The Patriots and Browns mentioned as two of the most prominent suitors. I have been steadfast in my stance that the Patriots are the most logical suitor for Brandon Ayuk throughout this offseason for more than two, but 2 reasons in particular. One is that the team obviously has a major need there. 2, they have as much cap flexibility as pretty much anybody in the entire NFL because they don't have a particularly stacked roster and they have a rookie quarterback. 3, I understand that the Patriots are giving Drake May a runway. But Brandon Ayuk is 25. This isn't a 29-year-old they will be acquiring and paying probably $30-ish million per year to over a 5-year contract or something along those lines. He could grow with Drake May, which if Brandon Ayuk was simply motivated by the opportunity to win, he would be right where he is in San Francisco and find middle ground on a deal. I'm not begrudging him on this. I think he wants to win and get paid. But sometimes getting paid when you only get potentially one major bite at the apple can be the priority for a player, and I don't blame them at all. You know why? These careers are very, very short. Let me ask you this, though, Mike, and Daniel for that matter. Is there a team that's been mentioned? So far, the Patriots and the Browns seem to be ahead. Maybe the Steelers kind of hovering in the background. Of those 3 or anybody else that's been mentioned, you have a favorite landing spot for Ayuk if he gets traded? Maybe when he gets traded?
None are better.
Yeah, none of these.
I think that his value will drop. We'll move him down in our rankings a little bit, regardless of where he goes. I don't think there's a path to the situation he's in the most efficient offense in the NFL in San Francisco. I think of those teams, Cleveland feels right because he would essentially flip-flop with Amari Cooper, right?
He's been reported as probably a part of the package going
presumably,
back
right.
to San Francisco.
So if that happened, then Cooper we would feel better about, probably boost him up, feel a little bit better about his situation in San Francisco, and then Ayuk would kind of drop down a little bit in Cleveland. That might be the best outcome just because I'm probably a little more optimistic than you guys about Deshaun Watson's abilities on the field, and in New England, there's a little bit more of a question mark. You know, even if Jacoby Brissett starts and early in the year and is serviceable, he's had some receivers have successful starts. Yeah. At some point, they're going to turn it to Drake May. Will there be bumps in the roads? Will he have some struggles? I think the highest ceiling is probably New England if May is the real deal, but I have some concerns there. Also, I will say, add this on. Weird. The Patriots are in the wide receiver market. I thought they were all set there. I thought they had a good receiver.
Wow.
I don't know.
Mike, you have chosen to fight this battle.
I'm just,
I am the Jalen Polk believer, and I think 32 is too low.
Well, I've been drafting him lately. Now, if Ayuk goes there, then it's gonna burn. I'm gonna get double burnt. But.
I'd rather see him in New England for me. I'm not the believer in Deshaun Watson that you are. Since returning from his 11-game suspension in 2022, he's 25th in the league in passing touchdowns and 30th in passing yards. Part of that is because he can't stay on the field, but he does not inspire confidence. He doesn't look anything close to the player that he was in Houston. Maybe Brandon Ayuk can help unlock that, but Amari Cooper is no scrub. It's not like he hasn't had guys there to be able to help him. So for me, I'd rather take the upside on the Patriots rather than go with the Browns.
Yeah, I'm not sure the quarterback dynamic is dramatically different between Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson in New England right now versus Cleveland right now.
The paychecks.
I also think the possibility of him just getting peppered with targets is in play with New England, right? Yeah. Whereas Cleveland, even though I'm still kind of wait-and-see mode on Jerry Jeudy, I think has a few more established, better options than the Patriots do, David Njoku, not to be overlooked in that conversation.
Yeah, either way, dropping him down and
a little bit, maybe just a little bit.
A little bit.
I think I'll drop him. I'm hopeful for Ricky Pearsall. If he's out there in your league, you already drafted. He's on your. If he's on waivers, get him on the end of your bench.
Yeah, we will continue to monitor this. Once a trade actually officially happens, we'll dive even deeper into that. But for right now, make sure that you stick with us. When we come back, Field and I are taking Mike Clay to court, and you don't want to miss it. Daniel Dopp, Field Yates, and Mike Clay back here on Fantasy Focus Football, and we are going to court. We've mentioned it. We're talking about it. We're going to set this segment up. Here's how it's going to work, okay? We've got a couple of different things based on your rankings. Mike, your 192 just recently came out. You had a whole bunch of guys that you're ranking there. First, how difficult is it for you to put all 192 players together?
I mean, we keep these updated year-round, our overall board, so not
all that difficult.
I mean, they're perfect. We know where they're going to finish in that order, 1 to 92. So I just look at the list of players and I say, oh, this is how they're going to finish, and then I list them in that order. So
yesterday I literally talked about how difficult it is to rank players in the top 100. Mike here, yeah, no big deal.
Just rank them how they're going to finish. It's not that hard. We've been over this, okay?
Jeez. All right. So here's what we are going to do. Mike is going to be the defense. Field and I are going to go back and forth being prosecutors, making our case. You're already on it. You're already on it. Just save it. Just save it. So, Field, we're going to start with you. I'm going to be the judge for this one. Where do you want to take Mike to task?
Well, can I just quickly?
Oh, hold on.
I will be
the.
Yeah.
I need you to.
I need to.
Place your hand on this.
Thank you. I need to be sworn in.
Swear to the fantasy gods that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I swear, tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
I don't swear to tell the truth, so.
No, I already know you're going to lie, so I'm not even going to do it for you. All right, Field, tee us up with the first argument.
Mike Clay, I ask you this. Do you or do you not have Derrick Henry, who has led the NFL in touches and 4 rushing attempts in 4 of the past 5 seasons, as the 24th overall player on your board?
I do.
And do you have Rachaad White, who was second in the NFL in touches last season, but you also trashed via Instagram DMs, is 25th overall on your board?
Hold on. I have to consult my attorney. I do.
So here's the debate. I have Derrick Henry as 17th overall on my board. I've got Rachaad White as 37th overall on my big board. Whoa. It's actually not that Mike and I have Rachaad White ranked super different in our running back rankings. It's that I view him as a very clearly different tier than Mike does. My primary concern, so the gap between those two players in your overall rankings is just, I think, it's just one spot, right? Whereas to me, it's a large gap. I view Derrick Henry as a much superior player in fantasy football this season. Derrick Henry, I think, will be the efficiency god in Baltimore, right? I don't care about how many catches he has. I don't care if he has 20. In prior years, that's been enough catches for him to be amongst the 3 best running backs in fantasy football. What I do care about is, does the team plan to rely on him heavily once again? That's why they signed him to this 2-year contract in Baltimore. And regardless of how reshuffled the Ravens' offensive line is, they added Derrick Henry to a Lamar Jackson-led offense where it becomes pick your poison. I think Derrick Henry is going to be a far more efficient player this year than he was last year and pile up about 10 to 12 rushing touchdowns. Gus Edwards, amongst the league leaders in goal-to-go carries last year. Derrick Henry, no running back is better than finishing those drives than Derrick Henry.
Objection, hearsay.
I don't even know if that's accurate or not, but I like it.
I don't think so, but
My
a lot of
contention is just that, I think Rachaad White will have a lot of carries for the Bucs once again.
Yeah.
He was also incredibly involved as a receiver last season. He actually averaged 8.6 yards per catch. A lot of checkdowns in that offense led by Baker Mayfield. They drafted the player that I think can be the ideal pass-catching back in Bucky Irving. Probably the best pass-catching back along with Dylan Laube in last year's draft. Led the FBS in catches amongst running backs. I think he takes over enough of a workload from Rachaad White as a receiver that Rachaad White is amongst the regression candidates this year because, as you know, Mike, he is an inefficient runner. His volume was solid. I don't think his efficiency is going to be good enough this year to make up for what I believe will be a decrease in catches.
All right, prosecution rests. Defense.
All right, so let's just say this. You're talking about a guy who's 30 years old, and Derrick Henry, past his prime, old man by
Ageism
running back
already.
standards, who
Be careful.
who was inferior to Rachaad White last season in fantasy production. Okay, last season, Henry 16th in fantasy points per game. Rachaad White was 10th. Rachaad White's 25. He's still on the ascent in his career, and yet you're choosing the side of Derrick Henry, who's older and was worse last season. Last year, White, 64 catches, 549 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Henry, 28 for 214 and 0 touchdowns. Even if that's an 88-point fantasy point difference, right? So even if White drops off a little bit in his receiving, which isn't a guarantee, that is hearsay, okay, that he's going to lose some of that work. We don't know how good Bucky Irving is. He's a mid-round draft pick. We don't know that for sure.
We don't know how old Derrick Henry actually is. That's hearsay. 30?
No, that's
mid-20s.
That's facts. We're arguing with the facts. Let the record show that Derrick Henry is 30.
He's in his mid-20s. Yes.
He is in his he's in his early 30s.
Running back years, he's mid-20s.
But last year, look, Rachaad White, first at running back in snaps and routes, second in carries, 8th in targets, second in touches, 4th in yards last season. Both running backs had 9 top 12 weeks, so you can't even argue the upside with Derrick Henry. The fact is he's not nearly as involved in the passing game, even if White loses some of that. White's efficiency as a rusher was not great. There's room for improvement there, but he is effective as a pass catcher, the volume and the efficiency as well. So I'm going to take the player who was better last year and is on the ascent and is a very similar situation in Tampa Bay over an aging Derrick Henry.
Boy, it's tough for me as a judge in this one, but when I look at it, it's hard. It's hard. I feel bad. I don't feel bad, Mike. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry on this.
Thank you.
Here's the reason why. I agree with everything that Field is saying when it comes to the rushing touchdowns and efficiency. When you look at the way that they faced stacked boxes last year, I understand Derrick Henry was not as efficient. It's because he saw more than twice as many stacked boxes as Rachaad White. He had 104 touches with 8 or more defenders in the box. Rachaad White had 47.
He might have 7 of those touches this year, Derrick Henry.
So I think that this is a situation where he should have a much more efficient offensive line. He should not see as many stacked boxes as last year. Because of that, the 12 rushing touchdowns that you project, which I already feel like is kind of a lot for you. You don't usually project double-digit touchdowns for a running back. I got to go with Derrick.
Yeah, by the way, the funny thing about this is actually have Henry one spot ahead of White. The argument is that they should be close together.
Well, this is what I want to do. Right. This is what I want to do. On the poll, Jackson, if we can, throw a poll up there on Twitter at Fantasy Focus. 4 options. Derrick Henry versus Rachaad White. Clearly Derrick Henry, barely Derrick Henry, clearly Rachaad White, barely Rachaad White. I mean, I can't say that this is
I would say it's barely Henry.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You're saying it's clearly Henry.
Right.
I think it should be close.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to find out from Masses.
All right.
Mike has to pay
That's
my
the first
legal
one.
fees now, right?
Yes,
Because
Mike
I want
does. That is exactly how these lawyer things work.
Daniel, your turn.
All right. Your Honor, my client Jayden Reed's ranking is too low. I currently have him ahead of teammate Christian Watson as wide receiver 31, with Watson as wide receiver 40. Michael Lester Clay has him as wide receiver 41, Christian Watson, and Jayden Reed as wide receiver 42. I think this is a travesty, and I'm going to tell you why. Couple reasons. One, I'm going to pull up my notes here. Couple reasons. In their 9 games together last year, 9 games together,
Yeah.
Jayden Reed had 101.8 fantasy points. Christian Watson had 101.3 fantasy points. They were almost identical when it came to fantasy production. Now, they got there in very different ways. Jayden Reed absolutely crushed it in the slot. He was top 5 in points via the slot during Christian Watson's healthy weeks. the thing that I stand on for me, 7 of his final 8 games, he had at least 15 fantasy points. As a rookie, with Jordan Love under center being able to take over this Packers offense and become more efficient, when I look at what that is, wide receiver 10 over that stretch, wide receiver 10 over the final 8 games. The big thing for me, my biggest hang-up, is Christian Watson has missed 10 games through his first 2 seasons. And I am not in on a guy that has continued soft tissue injuries. When I look at this, Jayden Reed, to me, should be ranked ahead of Christian Watson, given the similar production that he had, given the fact that the offense is going to continue to grow. And I'm not worried on a game-to-game basis about whether or not Jayden Reed is potentially going to miss the week because of a soft tissue injury the way that I am with Christian Watson. I am being risk-averse here. Give me the guy that I saw absolutely dominate the second half of the season as a rookie. Jayden Reed should be ranked ahead of Christian Watson.
On advisement of counsel, I'll be pleading the fifth on this one. When it comes to Christian Watson, I'm unable to comment on this stuff.
Okay.
We went back and forth last year about this, Mike. I'm sorry to bring you
all
up.
right.
Do you want to pass?
No, I will not. I will not pass. I'm going to ignore my counsel on this one.
That's a good one.
Look, I also looked at the games where those two played together, where the whole crew was available for the Packers last season.
The 9 games, 9 of the 17 that he could have played.
Yeah, full healthy games for Christian Watson. He had a 19% target share, Reed 15%, Romeo Dobbs actually 17% as well. That was a big drop. Actually, I say drop for Reed, but he wasn't that much higher even when Watson was out. Check this out. Last year, Jayden Reed, super reliant on touchdowns last season. It's a number that will not sustain. He will not score 10 touchdowns again this season. He was 70th at receiver in snaps. That was with Watson missing all that time. 70th in snaps, 63rd in routes, 40th in targets, 35th in catches and yards, but 5th in touchdowns for a slot receiver. It's just not going to happen. We've seen this over and over again. I project that he'll pretty much cut that number in total this season. I like the player, but just he does not have a path to a high upside this season. Also, Christian Watson, he was not a full go last year when he was out there early on, and then he started to heat up right before the injury that ended his season. 5 for 94 and a touchdown, 7 for 71 and 2 touchdowns in those final 2 games before that major injury. So I have them ranked very closely, but Watson is substantially more upside. And we've already seen in the off-season activity so far that Watson is out there. Like, he's going to be the one. He's going to be on the field, by all accounts, with Dobbs and with Reed in the slot with Wicks worked in. So for me, I still went the high ceiling with Watson.
So let me ask you guys this. Would you prefer the short and succinct ruling from me now? Because I have Packers wide receivers thoughts later in a second segment that we're going to do. Okay. I'm sorry, Daniel.
That's okay.
The defense wins the case here. Mike finally gets a W. I know it's been a while for you, so you get a W. Congratulations.
I'll
explain it more in just a little bit, but I thought both very compelling cases there, but more to come on that in just a little bit.
Jayden Reed's definitely listening to everything that you say.
Yes, he is.
Please be aware of that.
All right. EMD before now.
He has not yet, but it's
Not yet. It's coming.
All right, here we go. Down to Houston we go. We've talked about this one a little bit already, but let's talk about it even more. Stefon Diggs versus Nico Collins is the highest ranked Texans wide receiver. I am arguing on behalf of Stefon Diggs being ahead of Nico Collins. I am going to make this largely about Stefon Diggs and what I think he is as a player, less about what I think Nico Collins is, because I have significant admiration for your client, Mr. Collins, and believe that he is absolutely worth every penny the Texans invested in him this offseason. I want to establish that before we get going here.
Sure.
I don't believe that Stefon Diggs is the player that we saw in the final 10 games of last regular season. I think that was about a situation that was just about at its boiling point, that eventually reached its boiling point, and that's why he was traded. I also know that over the past 4 seasons, no player has more catches than my client, Stefon Diggs. He's one of just 2 players in that time, along with Devontae Adams, a superstar we have tremendous reverence for. Who also has at least 100 catches each of those 4 seasons. I believe the Texans made this acquisition, which included trading away a 2025 second-round pick, and also included shortening the length of my client's contract from 2 years to 1 to make this a contract season. They did this move because they felt like they lacked a player who could chew up targets in the manner in which my client can. I do not believe that my client is bound for 170-ish targets, which is something I would have reasonably expected if he had stayed in Buffalo. I think, though, he could see closer to 130 to 135 targets, which would lead the team and result in Nico Collins having slightly fewer targets as well. While Nico Collins' biggest weeks will be bigger than my client Stefon Diggs' biggest weeks, I believe week in, week out, the far more stable option will be the volume-heavy Stefon Diggs.
All right, so
You better bring it.
yeah, so I think this one's pretty straightforward. Nico Collins versus Stefon Diggs. At this point in their career, Nico Collins is the better player. And you mentioned that.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure about that, and here's
Really?
why. You said part of it. I mean, they made it a one-year deal in Houston. He's on a one-year deal at age 30.
Yeah.
He's had a falling out now with Minnesota. He divorced now from Buffalo with Josh Allen, one of the best situations in the NFL. And what's to say it's not going to happen again in Houston?
Because it's year one, and this is
it's year one. But what happens when he's not getting targets? What happens when he's
They're
not
gonna
getting
get
the
him the
target
ball.
share that he was getting? I disagree.
Why would they trade for him then? I guess what I would say is if Houston is forecasting the demise already, why would they trade for him?
Why would Buffalo get rid of their number one and go with a rookie and sign Curtis Samuel and go with Khalil Shakir?
Because the path had run its course.
Yeah, and that happened now in two other places. Why would it not happen in
Because
Houston?
it'll happen later in Houston. That's what I'm saying.
Not gonna be
We're
this
not doing
year.
a dynasty show.
I think it might
here.
happen soon. I think
Right?
it might happen soon with because the other side of it is Nico Collins. He got paid too. They signed him to be their number one for the long term. And check this out. This one surprised me when I was working on my defense. Stefon Diggs had 52 more targets than Nico Collins last year. He had 114 fewer yards than Nico Collins last season and the same number of touchdowns. Diggs' efficiency plummeted last year with one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Nico Collins soared, had a great connection with C.J. Stroud. I don't think that changes. And Collins' efficiency was outstanding last year. He could actually lose some of that and still be terrific. So I stand by Nico Collins. I think at this point he is the better player over Diggs, who's, again, age 30. Nico Collins is age 25. I'll take the ascending talent here, no doubt about it.
This is really difficult because, and I think Field,
good
you
arguments
said
here.
this. Yeah, it is very. Both of these
All of them
are
are.
really good arguments.
Yeah, these.
This is interesting. I think you had mentioned this. I think it was last week, Field, where you might be more on a player that's going to get you 7 for 99 rather than a guy that's going to get you 5 for 125,
Yes.
right? Nico Collins is that guy that can potentially take the top off the defense and have these game-winning weeks. But like you said with Stefon Diggs, he's not going to have potentially, like that target share is just going to be bigger.
Will it, though? Is he
Oh, it's tough. I
share than
think-
Nico?
Yes.
I don't know how to.
Yes. Put that on the board too.
I've got Nico Collins ranked just ahead of Stefon Diggs, but everything that you just said, Field, makes me pause a little bit because even though I love Nico Collins, to your point, why trade for a guy if you're not going to feature him in this offense? I mean, what's the purpose?
Players that change teams tend to drop off in production. I mean,
or
that's
sometimes they go up in production.
It's pretty rare. I mean, it's not
Really?
Wow. Not as often.
That's
no.
Christian Kirk what it's like to go from.
Well, there's always some exceptions, but most of the time it's a sign of a dip. So I don't know. I'm not at this point in his career. I don't feel like, especially after what we saw late last season. I disagree. I want the ascending talent.
Wow,
here.
do you hear Mike is so like he is so like okay with like I'm gonna go with Nico Collins because of it. I'm sorry, Field.
It's okay. Hey, listen.
This is a tough one.
Everybody, Mike, now up 2-1. That's a little bit sickening.
you want
really good conversations.
You want to hate on the defense? I get it.
All right, I got one. I'm gonna be
Today,
quick about this.
facts are
Do one
facts.
more here.
We're gonna do one more. I'm gonna be
Love
quick.
it.
David Montgomery should not be ranked outside the top 25, Mike.
Finally, an easy case.
What
Wow.
are you doing?
Wow. I mean,
My
he does have a Detroit.
gosh.
Is that a?
This is the
Ageism,
problem.
Detroitism.
I think this is a Jahmyr Gibbs thing and not a David Montgomery thing, but we'll find out. Here's the thing. David Montgomery, despite only playing 14 games last year, finished as running back 17 in fantasy points and running back 14 in fantasy points per game. Over the final 8 games of the season, when Jahmyr Gibbs was the guy doing all the stuff that we were hoping he was eventually going to be able to do as a rookie, David Montgomery still running back 18. You look at what this Lions offensive line does. Frank Haley has put together an incredible offensive line, potentially the best in the NFL, if not easily top 3, Mike.
I think it's number 1.
I think it's number 1 as well. I appreciate you saying that so that it wasn't me.
Wait,
Just so Lions fans, stay off your back. Hank Fraley. You went.
I'm
Frank
sorry.
Haley.
Did I say Frank Haley? I'm sorry.
former Eagles center.
Hank Fraley. Over the last 2 seasons, the Detroit Lions running backs have 47 rushing touchdowns, most in the NFL. Second is the Dolphins with 38. They also lead all running backs in carries inside the 5 over that span. David Montgomery finished top 5 in carries inside the 5. This rushing touchdown production is not going to go anywhere. They have the perfect two-headed attack at the running back position. I do not think it is at all unlikely that a three-peat will happen to have 2 Detroit Lions running backs finish inside the top 25. I've got Montgomery at running back 19. You've got him at running back 26. What the heck is wrong with you, Mike Clay?
Objection, badgering me.
The witness. Yes, that's exactly. I am badgering you.
Yes.
It's not badgering me. Okay, so I'm just going to run through some facts here because I just use the facts. That's how I operate.
I thought I just did that.
The jury has to make a decision, or the judge in this case.
Yeah, I'm a judge.
Just based on information, okay? Not speculation, not nonsense.
Let's hear it.
David Montgomery, last year's receiving line, 16 catches, 117 yards, 0 touchdowns. He had a terrific rushing line, including 13 rushing touchdowns. But check this out, 38th in snaps, 22nd in touches and yards, but 4th in touchdowns. That does not add up. That's not sustainable going forward. How about where's the upside? 1 career season better than RB15. That was way back in 2020. So the upside's lacking there from a guy you're taking in the 7th round. And 0 16-plus point fantasy games after week 11 last season when we saw more Jahmyr Gibbs. There's just no upside. He has insurance value, but this is not a guy you feel good about starting. Best case scenario, he's like a fringe RB2 with limited upside. No thanks.
All right, I'm going to give the win to Daniel. You know why? Because what I am aiming for in David Montgomery is not some major upside play.
I agree with that.
He is ranked right now in what Mike has, I think, appropriately named the running back dead zone, right? It's just kind of like a bunch of uninspiring options. I'm going to bank on the player who plays in the best offense amongst a lot of those backs that we were talking about, right? It's like the Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, David Montgomery, maybe the 2 Pittsburgh backs, maybe the 2 Titans backs.
Brooks, yep.
All right. It sounds like you're trying to settle the case. I'm trying to win fantasy championship, so I'll aim higher.
Well, I would never let you go 3-1. So the answer is Daniel.
That's it. That's
Daniel
it.
wins.
Bam. All right. Court is now over.
Adjourned.
Oh, that's the word. Thank you.
Say
Yeah,
adjourned.
court is adjourned.
over.
Yeah, court is over. That's
Can't
what
get your facts right, your terms right. I said words like objection and
Fantasy Focus has been adjourned.
badgering.
Wait, what?
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we are talking about our toughest players to rank for the 2024 season.
Everybody just take their own and know. Yeah. I don't know if people can hear me or not. Oh.
There we go. Probably
gonna
can
start
now.
singing a
Back
song.
here on Fantasy Focus, my name is Daniel Dopp with Field Yates and Mike Clay. Everyone can hear you, Field, so tell me.
I'm tone deaf, so you guys would not want me to sing.
What? No, I do
Distraught
want you
from
to
getting,
sing. That's exactly what I want you to
smashed in that
didn't
court
know.
session.
I didn't.
We're talking about our toughest players to rank. Mike, you've got the 192 that just came out, so you just went through this entire exercise. Give me your toughest players to rank so far this year.
Yeah, so some
We're
of
not
it
in
was
court
the
anymore, so you can just
Yeah, you
argue
can just say
against
it. We're
yourself.
friends
Isn't that
again.
fun again? Yeah. So it's tough with the quote unquote old players. They're always tricky ones because no one wants to pick them when they're on the clock because they're not the sexiest picks. But I'm thinking like Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. When will they fall off the cliff? So those ones are tricky for me, but I have a lot of confidence in them. I think I'm going to hold. I think there's one more good year for those guys. How about Jonathan Brooks? Now chatter that he could be out until weeks 3 or 4. And
Not chatter. That's the coach on the record.
that's the coach. That's
Dave Canales
exactly right.
on the record.
But even when he comes back, is he limited? How long is he limited? Does he take over week 10? So
Some of us have been saying this for a whole summer.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to drop him down my rankings a little bit.
A lot.
Once he takes control, though, he could be a league winner down the stretch. We saw like Breece Hall just crush it once he was a full go last year. So I moved him down, but he's a guy that's a little tricky right now. And finally, how about the Seahawks wide receivers? DK Metcalf, I think we agree, is the top guy, but he hasn't had that ceiling the past couple of years. And then will it be Jackson Smith and Jigba passing out Tyler Lockett? He couldn't do it last year. Even down the stretch, could that happen this year? I'm ranking it that way, but it's not for sure.
Tell me, Field.
Anything missing there or no?
No?
Seahawks wide receivers?
No, I don't know any other. D. Eskridge, is he still there?
Oh, wow. How dare you?
Laviska Chenault's there now.
That's what it is. That's what we were looking for.
Okay,
That's
got
the
it.
one.
All right.
Let's get a little. You can give Jake Bobo a little.
DK
love.
Metcalf, clearly the best receiver. Yeah, amongst the guys not named Jake Bobo.
Laviska Chenault's pretty talented.
Correct.
You're right.
That's fair. I'll tell you what, the old guys are really tough for me because it's always about the production that you have seen. You know that it's been there, but I'm also looking at the upside for some of those young guys. All right, Field, who you got?
My turn here. T. Higgins, amongst the players that I find the most difficult to rank right now. We've talked about this so many times, but the contract is in play here. If something happens to T. Higgins, is he going to take his time getting back? Which, by the way, is the responsibility to himself he probably bears. The Packers wide receivers. Here's the question that I have about Jayden Reed. And I'm afraid that this is going to draw venom from Packers fans and also Daniel Dopp. Is it possible that last year was Jayden Reed's version of what Curtis Samuel did during his season with the Carolina Panthers when he was a monster in the final half of the year? That's the question that I have. By the way, Curtis Samuel's a darn good player. He's gotten paid twice, 3 for 36 and then again 3 for 24. $60 million, that's top 1 percentile stuff. But all the Packers wide receivers, I don't have a great grip on. I've said it a million times. Christian Watson, compelling case for him to be the number 1 Packers wide receiver. Jayden Reed, very compelling case for him to be the number 1 wide receiver. Dontavian Wicks, it's your favorite sleeper's favorite sleeper, right? And then meanwhile, Romeo Dobbs is like Jordan Love's best friend. Yeah. So I mean that not like that's the reason why, but Jordan Love loves throwing the football to Romeo Dobbs in the end zone specifically. So Packers wide receivers tricky, and the Bears wide receivers. DJ Moore I feel good about. Like lock him in, top 25 wide receiver.
Got paid too.
Yep, got paid. One of the faces of the franchise. Keenan Allen is awesome. According to Mike, he's a what's it, octogenarian? That's when you're 80, right?
Yes.
He's an octogenarian in Mike's book. He's 33
he's
years old.
able to walk at this point, at this age in the NFL.
And Rome Odunze, again, in a different circumstance, we'd be talking about Rome Odunze in the same light that we were talking about at least Malik Neighbors. Right. He is that special of a talent and a player. Mike often reminds us that the cream rises, right? So how much value do you place on those two wide receivers? If Keenan Allen in week 1 has 12 targets, would you be surprised at all?
No.
Not at all, right? The question, I think, for Keenan Allen is how does it hold up over the course of the season? If Rome Odunze has 3 targets in week 1, would you be surprised at all?
If he has 3, no.
Yeah.
I would not.
But at some point during the season, he's going to have that 100-yard game, and you're going to be saying, here it comes.
Yep.
But maybe the most logical likelihood is that it's the Seahawks last year. Where like Rome Odunze eventually picks it up and is like Jackson Smith and Jigba, a deep league flex option.
Yeah. Honestly, there's a lot of guys. I would love to be able to dive deeper into some of the guys that I'm having a hard time ranking, but the truth is, T. Higgins is one of them for everything that you just mentioned. Adam Schefter gives me a lot of trepidation with that contract. What happens if my hamstring starts getting tight halfway
He owes
through
it
the
to
year?
himself to be smart about that.
Exactly. And I'm going to save the rest of them. We're going to come back in just a minute. I'm going to talk about Titans running backs on the other side when we talk about our favorite running back by committees and why they're so difficult to be able to choose.
None of them are my favorite.
None of them are my favorite. No. All right, back here on Fantasy Focus, Daniel Dopp, Field Yates, Mike Clay. Guys, we're talking about a couple of running back by committees. We got to choose a side here. We're going to start with the Titans. This was one of my hardest ones to be able to rank, actually, as Titans running backs. I'm going to read this really quickly, if you do not mind.
Okay.
Titans head coach Brian Callahan said via the team's website, maybe they both play at the same time. Maybe one gets hot and you let them run. Maybe we just rotate back and forth. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. But they are both going to play quite a bit of football for us. And I don't view either one of them as a starter or backup. They're both starting players to me. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do in fantasy with that?
Yeah, we're supposed to not feel great about starting them at either one of them early on in the season. I fully expect that. They both have similar skill sets. They both can catch the football. Pollard is bigger, and he's so far in his career shown to be more of an effective rusher. I know Spears only has 1 year under his belt, but he wasn't used a lot in that area last year because Derrick Henry was there, but he was exceptional as a pass catcher. So I think you're going to see a lean toward Pollard in the run game, a lean toward Spears in the passing game. Pollard gets the goal line work, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a close call. It's not going to be a good thing. I don't think it's going to be a week where you go in thinking, I feel great about starting this guy, but maybe they're both just going to flirt with flex value each week. That's how I'm approaching, but I do have Spears 1 spot ahead. They're both going in the 9th round of our staff league, so I think it's kind of a toss-up. I would lean slightly towards
ESPN ADP is the closest of any of these running back battles we're going to discuss. It's currently 106.8 for Tony Pollard, 108.8 for Tajay Spears. So 2 spots at this point in the draft is very close. So I am going to flip a coin. I don't have a coin, but Mike told me I could flip his phone. Heads being Tony Pollard, tails being Tajay Spears.
Just toss it, Mike.
Wait, which one? Which heads
is Pollard, Spears is tails.
All right.
Wow.
So weird. Landed
Wow.
Spears. How about that?
Okay, there you have it. My pick is Tajay Spears. No, I don't feel great about it. It reminds me of not how the season played out, but how we felt about Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert going into last season.
Sure.
Similar players in terms of overall talent, similar projected role. It ended up being not that.
So which one of these guys is going to have 20 rushing touchdowns?
Neither is my answer.
Okay.
So yes, I believe I have.
Oh, I did it.
He
Mike
did
Clay
it!
finally broke his microphone.
Mike broke his mic. Good job.
One of us.
We've all done it.
Wait, how
So
does
you,
it feel?
you guys can be nice to me now?
How does it feel?
I'm in the club now. It feels great.
Yeah.
Nice.
that's-
Welcome.
I'm just going to see if I can repair this way quicker and better than Field can, and I did.
Wow. Look how fast that was, honestly.
Well, you know what? I don't even remember which way I have him in my ranks. I wrote it down and I've forgotten. So I'm going to pick Tony Pollard because I'm going to go against the grain of Mike Clay because he's a big, dumb mic-breaking machine.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
come on. I
That's
just
fair.
broke the mic. I fit in now, guys.
Yeah,
I'm
but
a
then you made
little
fun of me on the
higher
other
on
end.
Tajay Spears. Tony Pollard was just so efficient in that role in Dallas. I hope that the Tennessee Titans kind of move him back to that for us.
What
for
a
fantasy.
weird team. This team is
very
either going to be
gonna throw
way
the
better
ball.
than I expect or they're going to be like a bottom 5.
I think they're going to throw it a ton. I think they told us that by they shocked us by paying Calvin Ridley. Hopkins, once he's healthy, is there. They bring in Tyler Boyd. They're going to go
Braylon Burks
more
breakout.
11 personnel, and then you have two effective
pass-catching
pass
running backs.
catchers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're built to throw, and I think they're going to.
All right, let's talk about the Commanders running backs. We've got young Brian Robinson there, who also is splitting time with Austin Eckler. Mike, last year Austin Eckler was an easy top 3 running back, and then he's one of the guys that
into
you
the
talked
season.
about. He fell off a cliff, unfortunately. So now, if you're trying to choose between one of these two guys, which way are you going?
I'm going Brian Robinson Jr. for sure. I've been on the record on this one. He's one of my favorite targets. He's going in the 8th round of our 10-team staff drafts. Eckler 2 rounds later in the 10th, so a little bit more, a little cheaper there for Eckler. But Robinson, his usage has been pretty consistent so far. He actually, believe it or not, led all running backs in yards per target last season, so effective in that department as well. Jaden Daniels there could mean some lighter boxes for him. By the way, Eckler last year, 3.5 yards per carry. He has never been over 206 carries. I think he'll drop to kind of where he was before that recent spike with the Chargers when he was younger, which opens the door for Robinson to handle a bulk of the carries. Very fast-paced offense, a lot to like here for Robinson. So he's my guy. 8th round, I think that's going to be a steal.
I want to ask you a question before you answer, Field. When I look at that full screen, understanding there's a 2-round difference between the two, but only an 8-point difference in projection, why is it that you feel so much stronger about a guy that you've only got projected 8 points higher?
So sometimes it's also about like who you feel more secure with. I think Robinson's role is more secure in the fact that he's younger and on the ascent, whereas Eckler is an older player who's coming off a rough year, and we don't know really what he has left in the tank. So I just feel a little bit better about Robinson.
You could also say the more important part here, which is the projections are trash.
That's you could say that.
What happened
You know
here?
what?
I thought
All
court
this
was over.
I was going to say, I thought we were being nice to Mike. All of a sudden, we switched.
Just saying.
I'm on the Brian
Field
Robinson
does the projections,
bandwagon
so
as well. I would choose him.
We go 3 for 3 on that one, but I do love when people get mad about the projections. Right? I'm sure Mike hates it. It sucks. It's
Oh, no, I don't
it's a
care.
thankless job, but people get so mad. It's like projections, like not like this is what's going to happen. It's how we, Mike and Peter, is projecting it and deal with it, people.
Deal with it. Let's talk about some Miami Dolphins running backs. You okay with that?
Yeah, but this one's a fascinating from like a how are you making your decision approach.
This is very interesting. Devon Achane, second-year running back, coming off the board at 34.7, or Raheem Mostert, who broke every single model that you have, Mike, coming off the board at 103.7. There is like a 7-round difference almost between these two running backs.
So I would say, at cost, which is either fans' least or most favorite term.
At cost.
At cost. Everything at cost, right? It's like real estate.
You want Devon Achane and his size?
At cost, you want Raheem Mostert. You just do, right? Like we talked about this backfield yesterday, but you would rather get the guy who will not be as good as he was last year, but could absolutely be an RB2, low-end RB2. Getting him in the 10th round, like that's incredible value. I think Achane might end up going higher than this when we get into the peak of draft season. People love upside players. It totally makes a lot of sense. Mike has referenced how Achane's often going in the 2nd round of our staff mocks. That's too rich for my blood. At cost, I prefer Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I agree. I'd take C, Jalen Wright, with a late round flyer over all of these guys. But yeah, Mostert's
Ooh,
ADP
that's
is fine.
interesting.
I like Jalen Wright just as a flyer.
But you would
as a
rather
bench
him than
guy.
Raheem Mostert as a 10th round?
I would.
I'm fine with Mostert in the 10th round. He's going to drop off so substantially that it's concerned. I haven't drafted him at all. I just think there's better options in that zone. So I just have not taken a lot of Mostert this year, but I certainly would prefer it. The order would be, I would say Mostert or Wright as late flyers. Mostert 10th, Wright as a end of bench stash. But Achan's off the radar. Like, I haven't taken him at all. I have him as more like a 4th or 5th rounder. He's going in the 3rd round on average,
ADP,
closer to the 2nd round in a lot of our staff mocks. So that's just too rich for me. So if I'm picking between the two, certainly Mostert.
I just don't love. I would rather. I'm with you. I'd rather wait and take Jaylen Wright. I am worried about Raheem Mostert. All last year, I was worried about the injury history, right? And like eventually, it's going to happen. It didn't happen last year, but now another year here, I'd rather just wait and take Jaylen Wright.
History says there's a very good chance. I would say 80 to 90% chance, maybe closer to 90, that Mostert will score single-digit touchdowns this year. Based on their history of players that put up big touchdown totals, what happens the next year? If that happens, he's not going to be startable in fantasy because he's not involved in the passing game, and he's not going to get enough carries like a Derrick Henry, like to carry everything because you have Achane mixed in and perhaps a 3rd running back as well. It just, I just don't see it this year. I just don't know how
running backs like really don't do it for you. Like when you're hanging out with your lovely daughters, Mike, and you're talking when they're like, "Hey, Dad, what'd you do today?" Like I hung out with my friends, Daniel and Field. Like.
My old friends.
Do they ask, like, oh, wow, like, did Daniel forget his dentures today? Or, like, has Field used his hair coloring formula to make sure it's no longer gray?
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, my oldest just turned 10, so now I'm like, are you getting a job? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're old enough. Like, get to it. Come on.
Seriously.
Let's move along here.
All right, we got a bunch more running back by committees we're going to get to later on in the offseason. A bunch more backfields, honestly, that have a lot of question marks to it. But coming back right after this, we're going to close out the show with some questions from our listeners. All right, back here in Fantasy Focus, closing out this Tuesday. Daniel Dopp, Field Yates, Mike Clay. We got some questions here, some Q&A that came from Twitter. I'm going to throw this at both of you guys. This one comes from Ryan Brock, wants to know, what is the best quarterback wide receiver stack, and is there one to avoid?
The best quarterback wide receiver stack, if I'm playing in a deeper league and willing to pay the early price on wide receivers, to me is Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. If you are going with the more like conservative pay for guys like closer to at cost, I would say, and I understand there's some context that could impact this, but as of right now, very enticing Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel stack.
Ooh, with the
Very, very good cost right.
Yeah, I was thinking about, like, if you want the stack, sometimes you want a quarterback that's not going to run as much because it creates more volume. So you have as opposed to scrambling, you're going to throw the ball. So, like, maybe one to avoid might be, like, going Richardson and
Pittman.
and Michael Pittman because, you're going to get points when Richardson scrambles, but Pittman's not getting anything on there.
For
So
him
like
to achieve his top percentile outcome, meaning Richardson, it's probably going to come at the cost of Pittman and vice versa.
So I kind of thought about more of a lean toward a pocket quarterback who I like. So I was thinking like Joe Burrow and then Jamar Chase, who's attainable in the first round oftentimes, right? Unless you're picking very late in the round, you can usually have a shot to get him. So if you can get Chase and come back with Burrow, I like that one a lot. Maybe like a Kirk. In a deeper league, Kirk Cousins, Drake London is like kind of a fascinating one as well. I'll tell you what a fun one is, though. If you get your hands on Josh Allen, you could just throw some darts at a whole bunch of guys there with Shakir and
I'm on the
Keon Coleman
Shakir
and
train.
Kincaid in the 5th round. Like you could, where he's going, draft's fine with it. He's not going to keep up his efficiency from last year.
Yeah, but he won't be playing the slot either.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure they'll move him around. I mean, Samuel can play inside, but you would expect an uptick in volume, but the efficiency will come.
Yeah,
down.
I agree. But I
thought sometimes the hype with him was a little too much, but where he's going in drafts from a fantasy standpoint,
like wide
it's fine.
receiver 54.
Yeah, you could throw a dart there. Yep.
I realize this is easy because it was last year, but like I love CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott because of how late Dak is going as a quarterback. Really good value.
I hear you. The reason I didn't mention him is
Tough.
because
You gotta be at the top of
have
the
to
draft.
have a top 2 pick basically
fair.
to get him. I mean, maybe maybe the 3rd pick, but it's you're not really.
Well, let me ask: did the question say anything about? Oh no, it was just like which one is the best wide receiver stack. So I guess that's where I would.
So
go.
Mike did offer. That was a good answer there on which one to avoid would be Richardson.
Rushing quarterbacks.
Yeah, would that apply to like Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson as well?
It's from a stack standpoint, like building your team around it. I don't know.
I think so.
In terms of talking like the best stacks, yes.
Right.
But I think you could win with, Lamar and Zay based on where they're going in drafts, right?
And you could also win with Richardson and Pittman. It's also possible that Richardson is like further along as a passer. It doesn't need to be a dominant runner to achieve top 5 outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's also trickier with guys like where they have a bunch of options that are expensive in drafts too, which is something you have to be aware of,
All right, last question here. Going to close this one out. Mike, we picked on you a lot. So
We do
we're
the
gonna try
second
to have
one?
some fun.
As usual, I'm fine. I could take
we do the one from Grant.
Grant Patterson says, is fantasy football still fun for you even though it's your job?
Well, it is usually, but now when I'm on this show, I have to bring this handkerchief, which, by the way, is evidence that I wear makeup.
I was going to say, geez,
Wow.
a little too much powder this morning, huh?
Seriously.
too
Kidding,
much. I
I'm
need it.
kidding. It's humid outside.
Well, I mean, if a running back who is 28 years old, what is a fantasy analyst that's 39?
Wow.
Probably old, right?
I was gonna
I
say,
need
probably
makeup. So
if I have it my way, retired.
Yeah.
Is that too mean?
No.
Sorry.
I have a ton of fun because I
it's
love
not fun.
fantasy football is absolutely fun. Don't listen to anything Mike says. In part because we get to work with people that we like working with. I love being able to do this show with you guys. Just in general, the fact that my career gets to revolve around you two and Stefania and like the relationships that we have, it makes it very enjoyable.
Totally. And I'll say this just as an addendum to what these guys have already said. If you're still watching or still listening, you guys are the lifeblood of what we do every single day. And we want this whole season. We're going to give you a ton of information. It's inherent to fantasy football analysis. We're going to have a blast doing it as well. We hope you guys have fun. We have fun every single day. We're going to have our most fun season yet. So excited for where things are and where they'll be. Sorry for... I just got that was like at the Oscars when they're
That's
like,
right.
I want to thank they're like on to like thanking my third cousin Jake,
blinking.
who back in camp inspired me to one day pick up a script. And they're like, cut the music. My bad.
Thank you
That
guys
was my version of it.
so much for hanging out with us. We're going to be back tomorrow, the three of us again. Another big Wednesday show. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Now play the music. I think. Maybe.
Oh,
Possibly.
you messed it up.